I'm here with Richard Meeus, Director of Security, Technology and Strategy from Akamai. Richard, hello.
Hello, thank you very much for having me here, Darragh.
Let's start with asking you, can you tell me a bit about Akamai and your role in the cybersecurity industry, particularly in relation to the UK's critical national infrastructure?
So Akamai has been sort of very prominent in doing cybersecurity, specifically originally sort of in the cloud, but now in sort of all areas of organisations. So we do a lot with national governments across the world, but also within large enterprises, protecting huge swathes of people online today. What we're doing a lot with UK sort of CNI, a lot of the stuff we've been doing recently has been around with the NHS. So we're helping a lot of health associations give access to all of their doctors and consultants, giving them access to remote applications and remote services in a strong, secure way, trying to get away from all of those sort of VPN challenges that a lot of organisations have had. They've also helped with securing things like around capacity as well. So, for example, one of the cases that we were working very closely with the NHS on was what they called their Glastonbury moment, which is when the vaccinations for COVID were announced, and obviously there was a huge take-up of that, and we were able to help the NHS and the NHS app deliver 1 million vaccination appointments on that first day. So a lot of that was around making sure those connections were secure, making sure the customers were seeing the right sort of stuff on the screens, and they were able to go through a seamless journey.
Super. And so as part of that, how does Akamai define cyber resilience, and why is it important to reframe resilience as proactive mindset rather than just a reactive measure?
I think at the moment, when we look at resilience, and I think the attitude has changed a lot in recent years, I think people need to assume breach. It's going to happen. And what we try and do is talk to organisations about the basic sort of things that they need to be able to do. We often talk about a trinity of ideas around that. One is you need to be able to ensure that your online assets, especially your customer-facing assets, are available. That availability is key to prevention from DDoS and things like that. The other thing is the integrity of your customer-facing web applications. You have to make sure that they are don't have the ability to be compromised through standard injection style attacks. And then the third thing is DNS, because as we always know in IT, the problem was always DNS. So making sure that your DNS infrastructure is resilient, reliable, and is able to scale to the requests that are needed to. So as long as you sort of have those three elements, that really helps to provide a stable basis that allows you to be resilient as you go forward. But assuming breach, I think, is the important thing, because that's the bit that then gets your mindset in the right position about what to do next.
Yes.
Because without that mindset, you're still then going to be in, well, what are we going to do now?
And so as part of that, what do you see to be the most significant threats facing the CNI? And have these threats evolved in the recent years?
I think that a lot of the drive around threats against CNI has always been around the ability to destabilize, to create a lack of trust, but also for cash. There's that ability, just like it's the cyber criminals who want to come in and do ransomware. They want to exfiltrate data. They want to encrypt data. They want to be able to turn off key assets and sort of say, we have this power over you. So it's trying to create that lack of trust, and ultimately, if they can extract ransomware, which is why the recent consultation on whether ransomware payment should be banned within public sector was an interesting discussion point. I thought, as to is that going to provide the necessary distraction?
And how can organisations ensure they remain compliant with evolving regulations, such as changes to NIS regulations? These are the ones proposed by DCIT. And what tools does Akamai provide to support this?
So I think a lot of the rules around sort of NIS 2, which was a great way of sort of elevating the cybersecurity resilience and the upcoming sort of cybersecurity and resilience bill in the UK, which is going to have some comparisons, we could say, with NIS2. I think that those goals are very, in some cases, aspirational, but I think it's a very good step forward to try and get us to the point where organizations can provide the basic levels of resilience. I think the interesting points around that are reporting. There was a very interesting panel session earlier on today where I think the leader for David Koh from Singapore was talking about, he had a very, very good, and he was talking about the challenges that organizations have around reporting. And this is always one of the biggest risks or problems that the cybersecurity industry has, is that we don't share information. And what Singapore was doing, encouraging their organizations who are being breached to share information so people can learn from other organizations of what has happened. The British Library documentation when they got breached, that was so refreshing to see that level of detail, and somebody saying, look, hands up, this is how we got done. That really helps to emphasize to other organizations how they were done. It's not necessarily novel techniques, it's legacy techniques. And therefore being able to provide that level of detail, but getting the visibility into an organization's threats, how they're being impacted, the threats that are coming, and be able to consolidate that information. And where Akamai begins to help in that is that we're able to provide intelligence around data flows through your organization, looking at the analysis of abnormal activity, looking at activity external to your business, where end users could be compromised, end user machines could be compromised, and inbound threats through your website or your APIs. We can consolidate all that visibility to give you the necessary tools that you need to do to then do the necessary reporting.
And so what would you say are the key elements of a robust cyber response plan, and how can organizations recover more quickly, and how do they adapt to cyber incidents?
It goes back to what we sort of mentioned before about the assumed breach. I think responding to cyber threats and cyber incidents, you've got to basically put yourself in the mindset well in advance. So you really be able to define what your RPOs, your recovery point objectives, your RTOs, recovery time objectives. How long is it going to take to recover? There was, I think, on the panel yesterday, somebody was talking about the Apollo 13 mission when they were turning the switches on to figure out how they can make everything work before the ampage cut out. And I think that was a great example of the challenges that organizations have when they get hit by a ransomware attack. Because when everything gets knocked out and you're starting from scratch and you have to rebuild from backups and various and new builds and installations, how are you going to build it, and what order are you going to build it, and what are your expectations for doing that? And I think with organizations, they need to be able to understand that they're going to get breached to a degree. Yes. And one of the, I use a really corny expression around
Go
this.
ahead, use it.
Well, I borrowed it from a Rocky film.
Okay.
Which is always a good way to...
classic.
Exactly.
So, yep.
And in the first Rocky film, there's this film where Sylvester Stallone's talking to a young up-and-coming boxer. And he says, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And I think that's sort of really where resilience is you're going to get hit. As an organization, we are going to get hit by cyber attacks all the time. And some of them are going to be really, really hard and have devastating impact. We need to be able to take those hits, but have the resilience to keep moving forward. And that's where the tooling needs to be in place, so you can make a breach. When it happens, you can make it a trivial event and not a career-defining event.
Yes, I think I need to get that on a T-shirt. I think that'd be a good reminder. But it's a good analogy. So I suppose final question for me is like Cyber UK. You're here again, and we're delighted that you're able to be a key sponsor. How has Cyber UK been for you? What are you how has it been, and why would you recommend people to come here?
It's been a very interesting event. I've seen the panel sessions. We talked about a few of them in the previous questions. Really inspiring, really interesting. I think the focus this year has been a lot around things like cyber essentials and getting those basics down, and I think that is a real key about how to basically create these non-negotiables.
Yes.
You know, what is the minimum that we need to be doing, and not sort of giving these lofty aspirations of where we need to do with attainment, but also what's the basic stuff that we have to do just to get ourselves in a position of security and resilience. And there's been some really good talks around that. It's been great. We are an ambassador for the NCRCG, and we've really enjoyed talking about that, about how we can help SMEs with their cybersecurity challenges as well. So being an ambassador with the NCRCG has been really important to us here. And just the ability to have lots of really good meetings with our partners and with customers and potential customers, invaluable.
Super. Well, look, Richard, that's been marvellous. Thanks for all those insights, and thank you for being here again in Cyber UK.
Thank you very much indeed, Darragh.
Thank you.